a minute. As always, the normal show setup takes just a minute or two for us to get ready.
The end is near.
The end is nigh. This is the end. Yeah.
This is the last one of the year. Well, maybe not.
No, we might do another.
A bit of a review show.
Well, maybe not with you.
No, that's it.
Unless you fancy.
Like a live stream from New York. That's it. On the ground.
Okay.
I'll hear the NFL playoffs. No New York teams made it.
Okay, yeah, that's fine, isn't it? We're on the edge.
Oh, right.
We can scooge it up a bit.
I always think it's strange because the viewers are seeing us.
It's like videoception, right? Yeah, we want the best view of the screen possible, don't we? So we can just hang about on the edges.
4 different me's there.
Okay, no one see my message, so we're probably not going to have anyone tune in, but who cares? You can watch this back.
You can. This bit as well. This bit.
Even this bit. This is the best part of the show. Okay, so, right, we are underway. Welcome to another episode of the LOC Report. What will be the last one we do within the season.
Yeah.
But we may do another show or two if we have any stuff we want to mop up or whatnot, but hey-ho. Just focusing today, we have the final LOC report of the in-season, and we're back again with co-host Chris Leach. How's it going, Chris?
Oh, man, it's going well. Can't believe it's Christmas. Can't believe it's the end of 2017. Can't believe it's been 4 months since we started doing this.
Yeah, longer.
Again, 5 months, more than that, I don't know. Half a year.
July we started?
July. Well,
yeah.
I'm glad that you've been with us for all this time.
Yeah.
I hope that you've enjoyed everything that we've done so far this year, and we will continue to do this
yeah.
next year. You know,
yeah, absolutely.
And so we are always open to feedback about
absolutely.
Format and how we do things and what you want to see. So
yeah,
so you know, if you've got any feedback like that, then please.
Speaking of feedback, can you please record it as our fail-safe as always?
I've got it 1% battery on my phone, so I'm gonna struggle.
I've got a charger over there if you want.
That'll do. 1 second.
Yeah, it's fine. I will set up the premise of the show.
This is professional.
Yeah, absolutely professional. Sorry. Put this in your feedback. It's fine if you want. But yeah, so yeah, just
that'll do.
So yeah, this is going to be the last show of the regular season, or of the LOC season that we do in the season. So and we're pretty much just going to focus on the real playoffs and the Corona Bowl, because really at this point this is all we really care about. So
absolutely.
Let's not delay anymore though, because we'll give you a normal show in regards to how we start with the league news, and we'll start off with the injuries. Not everyone's injuries, but the 2 teams who are in the Corona Bowl. So we have Isaiah Crowell, limited participant. I think he'll be good to go. Apologies, I've kind of switched off, so I'm not 100% sure on all these. DeAndre Hopkins, limited participant. I imagine that's still his toe, which he got in a midweek injury last week, but he played, so he will play again. Damian Williams, limited participant. He did play last weekend, so I'd expect him to play again this weekend. Blake Bortles, full participant. Probably just a rest day, should be good to go. Cyril McCoy, limited participant. I'm going to guess that's a knee.
He does have a knee. Yes.
Sore knee, he'll be fine. Aaron Fitzgerald, full participant because he is old, so he'll be fine. Marquise Goodwin, limited participant. Don't know what's up with him. Do you know?
Marquise Goodwin, yes, yeah, he has a death in the family.
Oh, his dad died.
And a back injury.
And not a great combination.
That's it. Should we put the coffin in the ground?
That took a very dark turn. Leonard Fournette, he's a full participant. He missed last week's game with a quad injury, but by that designation, he should be good to come back this weekend.
Indeed.
That is your injuries, as I said. We're not going to look at stuff that has no impact on anything, but we are going to look at all the transactions just because it's easier to do that.
There are some funny ones in here.
There are some funny ones. So, but then has added Martavis Bryant for $23 and dropped 20 stills, which is fine with Antonio Brown. I haven't seen updates from Brown, actually. I don't know if you have. I don't know if I've just missed that one.
No, he's definitely out this week.
Okay, he's definitely out. I don't know what the calf injury he has is. Forward Fires added Benjamin Watson for $10 and dropped OJ Howard. If you need a tight end, Ben Watson even at 37 something.
He's getting on.
Speaking of old tight ends, Antonio Gates, who must be 50 by now, was picked up for $5 by Chris. And they dropped Derek Carr, axing the last remaining quarterback of most of their 2017 season. He added Giovanni Bernard and dropped Corey Clement. I believe Joe Mixon's coming back this week. He was really close last week. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. Was that everyone there? Yep. We have Tango added Keelan Cole and dropped Jimmy Garoppolo. That makes probably the 3rd Jaguars receiver they have on their roster.
Wow.
on the roster.
More than the actual Jags themselves.
Yeah.
So,
What else? ADLZ added Phil Dawson, dropped Greg Zola.
can we just say this is major news?
This is actually a huge injury.
Yeah, because Greg Zola is the #1 fantasy kicker. And he's put up a lot of points.
Yeah, and I'm not even sure when he suffered a back injury. I don't even know when he suffered that in the game. I didn't hear about anything on Sunday.
Not so sure. That's it. Probably the same place as Marquise Goodwin got his. That's it. Just it's completely utterly made up.
Yeah, probably. We skipped over a few here. Gridiron Gang kind of did a few random things. They're not all on here, I don't think, but I added Owens Darkwar again and Charles Clay and dropped Ron Connors because he was injured. And then I added Tion Green because, I think I probably did something. Oh, did I? Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Who cares? It doesn't matter anymore. ADLZ then decided to add the new Rams kicker, Sam Ficken. I've never heard of him. And dropped Wayne Gallman.
The Rams.
Then Ixan dropped Austin Hooper because they did activate Ezekiel Elliott off of IR.
Wow, there you go.
No longer suspended.
No,
there you go.
That's it. There you go.
That's all of that news. Other news, forfeit playoffs are pretty much cancelled.
That's it. I was going to say, that's a feature we won't be seeing
Yeah,
again.
it's kind of the worry I had when we voted out the system we had, which actually did make people play.
Yeah.
Because it did have semi-important bearings. You know, draft order really doesn't necessarily impact at all, but in people's minds they think it do at least.
Yeah.
So forfeit playoffs, which the league voted to replace it, and as we are a democracy, I did not stand in the way, of course, and predictably it failed after 1 year.
Absolutely. So we shall review that in the AGM.
See what we can do.
And reverse it.
Yeah, see what else we can do.
That's good.
So yeah, not really anything going on in the forfeit playoffs. You're welcome to come watch the games on Sunday. Of course, well, the Corona Bowl and the NFL games on Sunday. Other than that, we'll get to the league nominations in a bit, middle of the show, like we usually do with the other stuff. So we'll cover that off in that show, give those a bit more of a highlight.
Yeah.
And they'll be awarded on Sunday. We usually do those just before the Corona Bowl starts. So we'll do that. Oh, there's also a Saturday game this week, so make sure.
Yes.
Make sure.
I can't quite think of who it is.
No, I don't know. It's only the one.
There is a Christmas Day game as well.
Yeah, as usual. You've got the Sunday and Monday night games, but again, we have the one random Saturday game. Anyways, before we get into all that, we will look at last week's games, and as I said, we will just focus on the playoff games, real playoff games. And we'll start off with this one, the number 1 seed, Forge Flyers, against the number 4 seed, Gridiron Gang. Entering this one, Forge Flyers, were just coming off a win, finished up the season 11-3, won the regular season title, had a great year. Gridiron Gang had a pretty wild entry into the wildcard spot, and that's pretty much the only way they do make the playoffs. But they've done it 4 times now, pretty in the same way, so hey, it's working. Entering this game, though, it looked like it was going to be a great matchup. We said on the podcast last week, we reviewed each other's sides. There was a lot of potential upside and also a lot of meh, so we thought it would fall out and turn into a really good game.
Yeah.
And it was a really good game. I think by all accounts, as far as playoff games go, it was really entertaining. Chris did win it in really impressive fashion. Not sure if it's a playoff high, but it's got to be up there. 157 to 106 points. It was a great Forge Flyers win to roll on to their first Corona Bowl, Corona Bowl appearance, first playoff win as well. Yeah. Congratulations!
Thank you.
And I'm really hesitant to call it a Gridiron Gang loss.
It wasn't a loss
because I put up 106, and as we'll see in a second, won't dwell on that. But that's a good score for any week, and it's continuation of the good scores for Gridiron Gang. 100%. But when you run into a team as good as Forge Flyers, sometimes. I'm not even annoyed. A team drops 157 on you in the playoffs. That team deserves to be in the final.
You can't know.
But I've given enough up. Tell us about what actually went down.
It's true, and so it's right. This game was good, and there are no losers in this game because, yes, although obviously Gridiron.
Nature of the game, someone has to.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, couldn't progress to the final. That's not necessarily through their bad luck or negative strategy or anything like that. It's just because there was a positive week.
Yeah.
So let's talk about why. And let's start with, for the first time, I'd say I've never seen stat lines like this. We've got a 31 points for the QB. We got 42 for Todd Gurley. I mean, like, come on, that doesn't happen.
Unreal.
Yeah, so 21 for LaShawn McCoy. Yeah, this is a week where everything went right, and we've said all year that it's been fairly explosive. Well, this has just gone off. It's gone nuclear this week. Receiving wise, not particularly clever. You know, I said nothing on a tight end, but you know, it is what it is. Marquise Goodwin's been great in a decent matchup, but I think now playing the Jags this week is not going to be quite the same. But say good value out of him. Handy 60s from Larry, and then the Jags D and Kenyon Drake doing what they've been doing over the last 5 weeks consistently, which is putting up some decent points.
Yeah, absolutely.
On the other side of the board, it's a nice week for Gridiron Gang, as we said before. I think we said some of the matchups that were plus didn't turn out to be quite so plus. So Funches against the
that was an odd game in the sense that the Panthers pretty much just did whatever they want. They didn't even really need to throw it to the receivers. I mean, Kevin Bird though got the 2 touchdowns.
And Christian McCaffrey had a day, which was good. Yeah. So just didn't need that sort of deep threat that Funches is. Jack Doyle against a pretty porous Denver D when it comes to tight ends. Put out 47 yards, not bad for a tight end. And then Dez against Oakland, which you expect to do an awful lot better, considering what it is there. Putting out 5.5. So it's what you expect from Rodgers. It's what you expect from Bell. And the Cook's had a good day. Certainly the kicker had a good day, but ultimately it's a solid, but not quite enough to beat the nuclear force flyers.
And while I clean up this one, could you please let the LOC dog out? She is not happy with her captivity on the podcast. Is he? Actually, go out. Just leave the door open.
Yes.
And I'd like to highlight a couple more things. Just Chris's heroic play of Blake Bortles. You know, he's been a player in form recently, and I saw some amazing statistics on him this week in terms of how in some statistical categories he's outperforming guys like Derek Carr, Cam Newton, other great players like this. He's outperforming, and you know it's still hard to trust him with that, but for what Chris did, and it paid huge dividends. Again, as Chris said, that he didn't really do anything risque as such. Other than that, it's just the solid players that he's cultivated throughout the season and draft turned up on the day and did a great job. And on the Gridiron Gang side, Aaron Rodgers did not look Aaron Rodgers like, but still put up 28 points, which you know was what they snagged him for a few weeks ago. And you know it's a roster of bare bones that got turned into something good, really, because you've got guys like Burkhead, who was an 8th round draft pick, injured for most of the season, and I will go out and say a risky 8th rounder if there was such a thing at the time as well. Devin Funchess, a mid-season pickup. Jack Doyle, who we all know.
It's amazing. McKinnon, can I just say, he's got 140 receiving yards for a back.
That's mental.
That's crazy.
So you know, it was definitely a good season for both teams, as Chris already said. Won't harp on it too much longer. But the right team's going to the final, but Gridiron Gang should be no means disappointed with that.
Not at all.
And the finish. So we'll look at the next game then. Whereas that -6 by Gridiron Gang looking pretty good right now. So
right.
The stats took on ADRZ, and this was the 2 and the 3 seeds. So the 2 division winners of the Portsmouth and Winchester division were facing off against each other. Entering this one, both these teams were coming off a win actually. ADRZ in pretty spectacular fashion, but as we highlighted on the show last week, they had some pretty tough matchups, and we definitely could see a collapse. Maybe not a collapse for them, but just not a great week for them, which is exactly what happened. But what we didn't predict was on the other side, where Pakistan did the exact same thing, and this was a bit of a disappointing playoff game. 90 to 77 for ADRZ to fall really into the crumble.
It's what could have been really for Pakistan. There's a lot to be disappointed about it. There's a lot of players that let them down on there, but also the points are there. The points are there to be seen.
That's the toughest thing.
And that's the thing. That's what we couldn't say about Gridiron Gang in the last segment. Now, I think this is probably as good as ADRZ we're going to get on the day. They've obviously been very, very good all year, and they've put up some massive points. But this was the week they could have been beaten, because as we saw in the last week's show, the matchups were poor, very poor.
Very poor.
And to salvage 90 points from a poor matchups like they had, I think deserves more credit.
And just to follow on from that, I would say only one of these guys, DeAndre Hopkins right here, was the only one to really bust out against overperform against what we thought was a really bad matchup. He was playing the Jags, which on paper was absolutely awful.
Absolutely.
And with that toe injury, but he managed to put up 14. Apart from that, we got everything else right, and that's really.
What I will say is that I think the one thing that possibly could have happened was the Case Keenum, who has been an absolute beacon for consistency.
Yeah.
Probably should have played against a poor Cincinnati side. And
it's tough though, isn't it? Because it's almost similar to the Blake Bortles thing. Like your heart says.
That's it.
And your mind says.
And Dak's done very well all year, but say.
And it's the same thing the other way around.
It's challenging. Now we can say hindsight's a great thing, and that's something that will never ever be changed. But it is there. And say I think that when you play three backs, as some people have done all year, I said myself included, you've got to make sure that they're going to be better than what you've got before. And you've got McCaffrey on the bench, who is a workhorse for Carolina now, and he is something that they like to utilise into their offense.
Mm-hmm.
And is he going to be something? Is that going to be something that Marshawn Lynch is against Dallas? Well, yes, I agree. Is it Alex Collins against Cleveland? They got a good rush. They got a good rush D. Haven't got
Baltimore on any given week. You don't know what they're going to do.
That's right, absolutely. Quite. And Alfred Morris, who has been in a committee there, hasn't been their number one back. Is McCaffrey a better option? Well, for me, certainly. And if that's the case, then I believe, just by dodgy maths...
Well, those two, any of the running backs who would have played them over, plus Keenan would have given them
all. Exactly. So it's really, really hard to take.
We're not going to fault you for not playing the Rams against Seahawks. That's just one of those...
Nobody knew that was going to happen. And say, Falcons against Tampa, that's fair enough. So at the same time, I think that their pass down has done very, very well all year. And Pat's obviously been consistent in the last 2 years of getting to this point.
Yeah.
Just getting over that line by playing plus matchups.
Yeah.
ADRZ on the other hand, 3 seasons in a row, you can't fault the guy. I mean, it's fair play to you, Nigel. You've got yourself in a winning position all 3 of those times, and I think that they do have an enviable receiving corner.
Mm-hmm.
You have 4 receivers now, I think, including Robert Woods on the bench, who are definite stars. I think AJ Green is going through a patch where he's not going to be that sort of big fancy player because he's not playing with a QB who's in form. But you look at Smith-Schuster, who's probably number 1 receiver now for Pittsburgh. You look at Gronk, who's he's always there, and look at Hopkins, who is obviously matchup proof, playing the Jags and doing well. So there is the difference. Plus a QB who hasn't had a good day. So if Russell Wilson turns up next week, then they're going to score much more than 90, which we've seen throughout the course of the year.
Yeah, absolutely. And I nailed everything on the head there. Like you say, we expect to see a better ADLZ next week. Pakistan, it's again the case of another good season like last year where just didn't have the goods in the playoffs, and definitely we wouldn't have criticised them for not playing the Rams over the Falcons, but I still have a bit of a about them playing the Falcons over another potential defense, just because. Look, it would have made the difference on its own. Again, it would have been, I had to bring a couple of things to change the fortune, but Falcons haven't been a great defense all year long. No. And Tampa Bay, while, it feels like every week, the highlights are Jameis Winston's throwing some other ridiculous interception or fumbling it when he shouldn't be. But you're actually digging into the stats, they're not a very generous offense against, to give up defensive fantasy points, surprisingly.
They've got weapons.
They've got weapons, that's pretty much all they do, these stupid turnovers, unless you get a touchdown from that. That's kind of the result you're going to get, unfortunately. I just felt maybe there could have been a better option, but would have made a difference, so it's just me being a bit picky. ADRZ does go on to the Corona Bowl and now sets the record for Corona Bowl appearances with 3.
Wow.
No team has been to the Corona Bowl 3 times.
Can't argue with that.
3 times in a row, no less, which is also a record.
Absolutely,
again, the record until now was 2.
Yeah. Considering we've been dabbling in, keeper leagues and
in and out,
so changing the rules, you have to take your hat off to that.
Yeah. Well, and those kind of stats are fluid in any type of league structure. Before we brought that stuff in, when those records were set, but impressive nonetheless. So we'll look at the win-loss record now. So ADLZ does move to 4-1 against Pakistan. So history was on their side entering this game, and that came true here. Forge is kind of reversing their trend. They started this season 4-9 against Gridiron Gang, and they've notched 2 wins over them now, so they are now 6-9. So they're clawing it back slowly. What else went on around the league? So ADLZ and Bidadnators both won this week despite not scoring a top 15 scoring quarterback. So that's quite impressive. And Gridiron Gang continues to find the pundits, beat my projected score 5 weeks in a row. 5 over 100 as well, no less. Bare Necessities on again, don't read too much into all these, but they won again. Remember, this is the forfeit playoffs, whatever it's worth. So that is a 2-week game, but they won the first leg of it. The teams have won 50% of the time when starting the league's top scoring QB of the week, and that would have been yours, I believe. Yep. So that's now 5-5. You're also on a 3-game winning streak, as is ADLZ. So both teams going with the Corona Bar hot. Teams have won a mere 33.3% of the time this season when they failed to throw a pass. When they failed to throw a passing touchdown, which you would probably expect. If your quarterback's not throwing a touchdown, you're in hot water. Bare Necessities was favoured by the widest margin this week, 12 points basically, and delivered a 60-point victory.
Wow, that's it. And, convincing to say the least.
And Exam had another disappointing week basically. So, right, apologies, you can't read this very well. I can zoom it in though, so you need to take that without doing that, ideally. Where are we? So now that we're in the middle of the show, as I said, I think we'll dip into the award nominees a little bit. Don't worry if you can't read this. You can go check the article out. I posted yesterday, and we're going to talk through it anyway. So I thought it would just be fun for us to highlight the nominees another time, and I will be the one that decides the winners, maybe in conjunction support if I'm torn with the committee. But I thought it would be interesting to see. I haven't decided yet, by the way, so I don't even know yet. But I thought it would be interesting to see who Chris thinks it should be the favourites to win it. Okay. Going through it, it's an unbiased.
Absolutely, yeah. I can't vote for myself.
Yeah, well, you can. All right, you are nominated for some. But so we'll go through these in the order that they were posted. So last week's one, part 1, we'll start with. The first one is the Comeback Awards. So this is an award for in-season comeback. So you had a bad start and you turned it around, or a bad middle and you came through to the end. Or you had a bad seasons before and you've had a good one this year. So for this we have Chris nominated again. Obviously you won. I think you won the award last year because you had all those bad years, and even though you were 6-8, it was still a very good season in comparison to what it was.
Absolutely.
But this year, going from that to 11-3, really it's a continuation of that. So I thought deserving of a nomination again. Myself, leaving the draft, started 0-2, had countless injuries through the first few weeks. Managed to band-aid it, and obviously went on to have a playoff season, and went 9-3 after those first 2 weeks of the season. So that's a good turnaround. Coach David Stubbs had a similar vein. Really great start. Lost Aaron Rodgers, kind of bottomed out for a losing streak of 5 or something ridiculous. And as we've really just said, they've managed to turn it around again and nearly sneaked into the playoffs. And finally, Coach Wells. They didn't go to the draft. They had an auto-drafted team. Okay, I'm going to change my words slightly. It was a consensus draft team, so slightly better than what auto would be, but still not your own team. It's difficult to pick up a team you didn't draft. Blew all their budget in week 1.
It's true.
Stupidly. Yeah. Sorry.
We forget
I did offer to overturn it. But despite all that, going on to have another great season, another division win, and as it would turn out, another appearance in the Corona Bowl. So, those are the 4 nominees. What is your favourite?
My favourite there, I think. I don't think Nige is there. I don't think that's a comeback. I just think that's it's not necessarily good fortune to end up with a decent structure to start with. And some good pickups. We'll come to that later because there is an award for that. I think it's either one of you or Dave. I think probably Dave because because there's absolutely no doubt that Rodgers getting out of that team decimated it for a while.
Yeah, and then some other injuries happened as well.
Absolutely, that's it. Montgomery went down, and then that's it.
Jones went down.
Yeah, so it could have been awful, but it came back.
Basically, the Packers just ruined my.
That's it. And he won 5 in a row, I think, after that.
Yeah. Well, he closed out the season with 4 wins. So.
Yeah, 4 wins. So there you go. So I think coming back from that is great. I also think fair. Go and get into the playoffs considering no injuries you have is fair enough. So yeah, I think it's going to be a Stubbs off there.
Okay, all right. Next one, the Overachiever Awards. So this is a team for the defied all expectation. This one and the comeback kind of have some similarity, so we will see some similar names here. But they basically defied expectations. Shouldn't have done as well as they did for a given reason. So we start with Ollie Gardner, who, as we know, entering his second year. As we've said with Pat, as a good example, and some other coaches, it really does usually take a few years to get up to the level of consistent success. But 2 years in a row, Coach Gardner, okay, they took a step back in terms of wins. They were 8-6 their first year, 6-8 this year. And we know the team only went over 90 points like 4 times or something. But when we were doing all that analysis last week, you could tell that they had the points. They drafted. They cultivated a good team. They just didn't get the plane quite down. So, but 6-8, and given the way they did start the season scoring low, I think it's fair to say they overachieved a bit.
Yeah.
Coach Stubbs, myself, again, kind of for the same reason as before. Whenever you suffer those injuries at the start of the season, that can write an entire season off.
100%.
But where they got to 9-5, which ties my career best, feels a bit of an overachievement from what happened. Coach Wells, again, a consensus drafted team. Usually with all auto drafted teams, we just expect the worst, even when they are semi-drafted, which some have been slightly in the past. Same here, 9-5, highest scoring team in the league. That's that is an overachievement right there, and especially blowing all your budget in week 1, not being able to add key guys as you go.
Yeah.
And then finally, Coach Nunn. Again, I wrote it all in here, and you can go check it out. But 4-10 team, you might say, how the hell is that overachieving? But there was one point in the season where we were talking about this team setting a record for losing.
We did,
and they were 1 win at the time, and they would have only needed another, I believe, to tie to tie the record. So that was really saying something, and they got to 4 wins, and really more than that, a lot of weeks they put up decent scores. So I think what Coach Nunn was able to do, again, without adding anyone really either of impact. And I think I put in here, I will just read out. This was my favourite line. Did I put it in here? I didn't. I think it's in the Locke Award. So I'll tell you the names of the running back they've been starting this season, but they did overachieve a bit as well. Do you need to take that, Chris? Sorry.
That's it.
It's okay. So we'll come back to the Overachiever Award in a second for Chris to give his favourites. In the meantime, we'll move on to the Locke Award. So the Locke Award is for the team that had a. Are you good?
Yeah.
It's okay. So the Locke Award is for a team that had a bit of stroke of a luck to help them along the way. Maybe they engineered that luck by some way, or whether it was complete luck, whatever. So we have Coach Stubbs here, myself again. We did some analysis on this last week, some good analysis, basically. But Gridiron Gang was the lowest scored against team in the league. And that does play into a team's favour, certainly. It's easier to get wins when you're not being conceded on. We did go through it, and obviously, not a lot of those were gypsy wins. Barely any of them were gypsy wins. I think there was only one.
Yeah.
But it still does play a role. Coach Gardner, pretty much for the same reasons we said, overachiever again here. Only top 90 points 4 times. Yeah. Was leading the division at one point near mid-season, no less. Or at least tied on record, so quite lucky in that respect. They were getting gypsy wins, is what I'm saying.
Yes.
Coach Wells, yes, I say it in there.
Yeah.
Again, conceding pretty much the lowest amount of points for a 3rd year in a row. I do start the question if there is a fear factor.
Well, I say, yeah. Well.
How else do you explain it? 3 years in a row, they've been nearly the lowest scored against team, which obviously plays a part.
Huge.
The team has been good. teams have been good each year as well.
Yeah.
It hasn't all been that, but it certainly plays a role.
It is huge.
And then finally, Coach Nunn again. I'm just going to read you out the names of running backs they've had on this roster and started throughout the season, and you'll understand instantly why they're nominated for the Locke Award, bearing in mind they've got 4 wins and everything. So they were starting Jamal Charles, excuse me, that's really bad timing.
That's it. What's really bad timing is I'm going to have to leave you in a minute, people.
Oh, no.
I know.
No.
Really bad timing.
So we have Jamal Charles, Jaquiz Rogers, Matt Forte, Paul Perkins, Dante Foreman, Theo Riddick, J.D. McKissick were players they started at running back this season.
Yes.
And they got 4 wins, and they were pretty much in nearly every game, I would say.
Well, that's it. So one of them has to win the Overachiever, and one of them has to win the Luck. It's not between you and Nigel. I must admit, it's Ollie and Ross, because that's it. I think
For Overachiever.
I think probably Ollie has to be Overachiever and Ross has to be the Luck.
Yeah,
I would say.
Okay, let's go with that.
That's it.
So the next awards we have, how much longer have you got, Chris?
I really don't have that much time at all, people, and I must admit.
We'll try and blitz some of this.
We'll just go through without massive explanation.
Yeah, sure.
We'll just go through each
So Coach of the Year. Coach of the Year is for basically the all-rounder, doing well, picking teams, getting high scores, maintaining a roster, and so on. And sportsmanship, of course. So again, we have Coach Stubbs for an impressive season, really, in the wake of a lot of adversity. Coach Allen, they had another great year, another division win. Coach Sherwood, right up until the end, they were having a great season. It's easy to forget how good and how much the last week let them down. And then Coach Leach, of course, for 11-3, career best record in the season.
I can't vote for me, but I'm going to have to.
I think that's just General Manager of the Year, so Coach Stubbs, as we said, when there's injuries, there's waiver ads and Gridiron Gang. Coach, I am one of the best at that. Had a reasonably strong draft. I executed 4 trades this year. None of them really too impactful, but a lot of them were short-term bandaging those injuries we spoke about and managing to trade an injured reserve Greg Olson for something as well, I'd like to point out. Coach Bidette, again, he didn't have a great season in terms of wins, but you look at the coach rankings, the points left on the bench and everything, and for the first half of the season, this team was absolute gangbusters. It's easy to forget that too. Coach Merritt, again, he's probably had the best drafted team he's ever had.
Yeah, that's it.
Not much more to say there, and they've had some good waiver ads on the way, and again, Coach Leach as well. Strong draft.
Strong draft. That's
Who are you picking here?
That's it. I think when you draft, you go with who you go for, but I think over the course of the years, where you win this award. I believe Phil has turned his team around from being absolutely nowhere near where it needed to be to a contender in a space of about 4 weeks.
Okay.
So he wins. I think Ollie hasn't won enough for me.
Sure.
And his team hasn't really performed as it should have done.
Okay.
And you're nominated quite a few times, so you got more of a chance of winning. So Phil wins that one for me.
Yeah. Okay. Then League Commissioners Awards. This is my personal award that independent of football, really, I get to give out. Basically, people who show good sportsmanship, efforts outside the league, and contribution to the league. So here we have obviously yourself, Coach Leeds, for all the time you've given up this season, helping us out with the podcast. Coach Barnes, who had a pretty good streak of knocking out the E.Locker articles.
Yes.
And who, of course, provides me invaluable support at points in the season and during the season with league stuff. Coach Nathwani as well, he put his hand up to be the league ombudsman this year. Hasn't done any articles or anything, but again, within the LFC committee, that's the triple-headed power figures that run the league in the season. He's been really helpful with some of the stuff as well that we've had to deal with. And then Coach Bidette here, I don't know why this happened in the article, but he's on the bottom, stepping in on some podcasts and supporting us. And although it's different to your style, it's less colourful, it's more analytical, it's good. And
colourful is good.
Who you got for this one?
This is tough. This is tough. That's it. So who's put themselves out more? Who broadcasts you every week?
Yeah, I think we know. Now, finally, we will, Rob, before you do have to dash off, we will just look at the coronavirus itself. This is the thing we probably should have spent. There's only so much time you can spend on it.
Absolutely.
So, lockdown, we're not going to sell it too much. We all know what it is at this point.
Absolutely.
Number 1 and number 2 seeded teams playing in the Corona Bowl both have the potential to go off every week, as we've seen in recent weeks.
I agree.
Looking down the lineups, the projections are 99 to 97. Over the history, ADLZ is 6-5 against Fudge Flies all time, so the history is close, which is good. And the previous matchup between you two wasn't exciting, but it was a close game. Fudge Flies lost it 95 to 85, so there's a bit of revenge in here as well. Chris, tell me about the Corona Bowl.
Okay.
Corona Bowl 9.
This is it. Corona Bowl 9. First time I've been in it. I'm really excited. So let's explain where it can won and lost. This is going to be a battle between who can get the most amount of points on QB, because both of them have a decent matchup, albeit Dallas is away. They're both away from home. The weather won't play a massive part. They're both on form, throwing like slingers against that. So that isn't the problem. Here's what it's going to be. It's an enviable receiving core that ADRZ have. As I said earlier on, you got Smith-Schuster against Houston, Gronk against Buffalo, who, as we told us before the pod, Nate mentions that he might not be at full strength this week, which could play to my advantage.
The Patriots might rest him or dress him, and
that's it.
Not really playing that much.
Robert Woods in a decent matchup in Tennessee.
Coming back from injury and typically good against receivers, I would say.
That's
Tennessee.
it. I agreed, but at the same time, we say they're in top form.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other side of the ball, we got to talk about the running backs here. We got McCoy against New England. He's gonna be the stud in that offense. He's gonna have to be the guy who carries that ball. Gurley, as we saw last week, just goes off like a volcano. And let's be honest, Tennessee is a really good. It's a really good run lead, but at the same time, so was Seattle last week, and that didn't matter. That didn't matter a job. Kenyon Drake down here against Kansas City. That represents
not a great defense.
Yeah, that's it. A decent matchup as well. Not a great D, especially against the run. We've seen over the last few weeks that Le'Veon's put some decent yards against that, and he's sort of a similar back to him. So that is good. Jags D against San Francisco, I like that. Lambeau against San Francisco, I like that. I also like Dawson against the Giants as well, but
or Ficken.
That's it. Ficken against Tennessee. Who knows? The defense-wise, it's going to be interesting because obviously Kirk Cousins isn't in the best form. He's playing the Broncos.
Away from home Broncos are not as good as at home Broncos.
Absolutely. And then the Jags D is what the Jags D is. A serious unit. Receiving call for Ford Flyers is it. Drew Stanton's back in this week. He's going to give Larry lots of targets. Mike Wallace against Indianapolis is a good matchup, especially he is the number one receiver there now. We don't talk about tight end of Ford Flyers because we don't have one. So yes, it's going to be a real matchup. We want it to be what represents this here is a good number for the league. It's can we both get over 100 points, and then can I beat Knowledge?
Yeah.
I'd love to, because let's be honest, I've never won before, and it would be
I think
that's the Richie sort of story.
My sources tell me that the rest of the league also wants you to win, not only for the fact that we like seeing new teams win, especially when they're playing teams that have already won it before, but Nige, you're making it hard to root for you. I'm sorry. So
we try, but I hope for it to be a good result. So it's going to be a great game, and I hope that as many people as we can get down here to watch it, because I think that
we as I said, we do the.
It's going to be decided. It's not going to be quite decided on Sunday. There's two Monday night games, and if that doesn't go my way, my Christmas is going to be wrecked.
So the Monday night games, we've got Hopkins on one side.
That's it.
There's only the one.
I'm done. It's the catch-up leg.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So. Another tidbit. So ADRZ has the shot of being the first team to win 2 out of 3. Let's not forget they did win it in 2015 as well.
True.
So they could win 2 out of 3, which I don't think has been done before. Looking down, we all know you're going to go with your team if fresh to pick. So I will be the unbiased voice of reason here. And like you said, it's going to be a game full of fireworks. I would say Forge Flies, your team's a little bit more potentially in flux than it usually is.
Yeah.
Given Mike Wallace and Ben Watson coming in, obviously sticking with balls for another week. It's a changed side in some respects than what it has been this season, but it's still a very strong one, make no mistake. On the other side of the ball, yeah, I mean, this is pretty much what ADRZ's team has been all season long, but even though it's the same faces, they're definitely in different situations. Hopkins has TJ Yates throwing to him. He managed to do well on a fluke touchdown against Jacks last week. Yes, Pittsburgh are a better matchup, but if they have Joe Hayden back, that's not necessarily the case. Robert Woods, as I said, typically Tennessee does do pretty well against number one wide receivers or wide receivers. The other matchups here, again, Chris already covered it pretty well, that there's some okay ones, but you never really know. Seahawks are in disarray right now. Stewart, as we saw last week, can take a complete backseat to Christian McCaffrey. Browns running back, you never know what you're going to get. So it's going to be a close one, I think. I hate to say it, it wouldn't surprise me if one of these teams falls away more than the other. It does happen. It can happen any week. Sometimes it happens in the worst week possible. If I was to pick a team that was more likely to do that than not, I'd probably say ADRZ, because as we know, Chris is the triple threat. You never know if Fournette might even make it back into the lineup. In terms of who I think is going to win, I'm a guy that goes with solid base. And upside I take into account, but if you can say to me, yeah, this team's going to get 90 plus points, pretty much solidly, I'd say Forge Flyers. So I think Forge Flyers is going to win Corona Bowl 9.
So do I.
And that is the show. So I don't think there's anything else left on here. No. So thanks for joining. As I said, this might be our last one of the year. It'll be Chris's last one of the year. We don't usually do it to me afterwards. We like a holiday.
So yeah. Who doesn't?
A lot of evenings given up for the season, but it's been good. We hope you've enjoyed it.
It's been fun.
Hope you've enjoyed the season. Good luck to both Corona Bowl teams this weekend. Hope you can come around and watch it. And we'll see you when we see you.
That's it.
Take care.
Take care.